right systems, the way that we run our days, even the routines that we create for ourselves, that mean that when we get to that coaching meeting, we are
Right.
on form. Doesn't mean we have to be all rah-rah and shouting and balloons,
Right.
but we want to be listening, we want to be intent, we want to
Right.
have really clear, concise processes that we're running through with those clients. We want to be listening really carefully. We can't do that when our energy is low. It doesn't mean that we have to be rah-rah. It just means that we need to be ready.
That's awesome. Okay, so that was our energy segment, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get back to mindset. That's a great answer. I appreciate that. So with the steer model, we were talking about some of the things that you do. So continue with that if you don't mind. That was good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So the STEER model is a model that I use with my coaching clients, regardless of whether they're coaches or not. And it shows how the stories we create about the situations in our lives and our work steer us towards our results. So you can use this model to help you become more aware of your thoughts and how they affect your outcomes as a coach. You can also use it with your clients. It's based in psychotherapy. I personally had therapy. Just a tiny bit of backstory. I went through postnatal depression after the birth of my first child. I had to go through therapy. So I went on my own personal development journey. I developed this model from the model that I was actually used with me in therapy. So there are different layers. So let's just quickly run through those layers. So,
absolutely. And this is all under the auspices of, just so people are clear on this, because you and I have talked about this, I just want to make sure they're clear. So this is all under the auspices of mindset. This is under the auspices of, for some, getting out of their own way. I know that was certainly a challenge that I had. For some, it might be getting forward and actually moving, because that's not a challenge that I had, but others do have, where they've been sitting on the sidelines all this time. It's like, get up and get moving. So getting out of your own way, getting moving, mindset, go right ahead.
Absolutely. And this is also a way to deal with a lot of the mindset challenges we have, the thoughts that we have around feeling like we're not good enough, comparisonitis, all these self-limiting beliefs. This is a way that a model that we can use to work through them. So So STEER model, it's STEAR. So S stands for the situation that we're in. So when we're working with the STEER model, we talk about the situation first of all. And I always say, grab a piece of paper, write STEAR down the side. And the first thing you're going to do is look at the facts about the situation that you're in. The facts of the situation that everyone would agree with in a court of law, for example. Yeah. So this is not about your emotions at this stage. This is just the fact. Let's say, for example, you had a bad coaching experience with a client. Yeah. And you're feeling pretty down about it. You don't want to go back out and do your next sales call, for example. What is the situation? Well, the situation is that you had a coaching experience with a client. That's the neutral position. Yeah. Everything else is perspective and conjecture. So we have our situation. That situation triggers the next point in the model, which is T, which is the most important one, which is our thoughts. So a thought is just a sentence in our mind about the situation that we're in. These thoughts are always optional. Yeah. Yeah. So the thought that we have creates our perspective, and it's the way that we see the world. We often we talk about, our thoughts create our reality. This is how it happens. So our mind creates a sentence about that situation. Those thoughts are what lead.
And let me just say one thing, that sentence isn't necessarily true.
No.
The point that I talk about a little bit is the idea of, it's almost like, in the literary books, a literary term is an unreliable narrator. So like if you ever watch like the old Alfred Hitchcock or someone, I think Alfred Hitchcock was the first one who mainstreamed that. That may or may not be right, but that's what I think. And the idea is that the person who is narrating the book, you think that he or she is fine, and it turns out that he's the Bay Street hacker, right? And you're like, so, at the end, he's like, oh, and I was running from the cops and I couldn't. You're like, what? You this whole time? So it's an unreliable narrator. And I think that that's if you don't mind me saying again, I think that that's an important part in this, because I think a lot of people take their thoughts as gospel. And actually, you almost need to take your thoughts as the opposite of gospel.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all based in the, the survival mentality of our base survival brain. So, when we have situations like this, the thoughts are created off the back of generally fear of loss. So we're fearing some kind of loss, and that is what is leading to the thoughts that we're having. And that goes way back to, when we were cavemen and we were going to be eaten by, saber-toothed tigers and what have you. And the amygdala at the base of our brain kicks in. And this is where these thoughts kind of come from. And I know, for example, I'm also the director of the Learning Academy for This Is My Era, which is a personal development company in the US where you are. And we use this model as part of one of our programs, Reboot Your Life. And it's been kind of revolutionary for people to realize that their thoughts actually are not serving them, and their thoughts are not truth. People tend to think, oh, well, it's just a thought, but our thoughts direct our emotions, and our emotions direct our actions. And this is really important. It's actions and inaction. So this is where procrastination comes from. And how many, I totally accept, I am in there in the procrastination crowd, guys. I think all of us have these moments where we feel like we don't want to move forward on something. It's not because of the situation. It's because of the thought we've had about the situation and the emotions that are driving that inaction. And those actions and inactions, they create the results, the effects of our action. And often what happens is that the results that we get provide the evidence to support our initial thought, which is fascinating. Yeah, fascinating.
So it's almost like this virtual feedback loop where, and I've had this where people say, oh, I had the lady just yesterday, oh, well, I had a chance to think about this and I don't want to do it. And it was actually for an interview. And I'm like, wow, like you just totally talked yourself out of it. Literally, you talked yourself out of it. And I think a lot of people, like coaches, so one of the things that I see a lot is they might not want to do a video, or they might not want to your point, start a podcast, or they might not want to, I don't know, get a speaking engagement. You've made that point too. Like there's different things. And it's like, again, if you don't mind my reference to the Hitchcock, the call is coming from inside the house, right? Like that's the old movie where the lady's like, oh, well, what's going on? If you haven't seen it, it's like the lady's like, all right, well, I'm inside the house and we've got all the people, and the police is like, all right, just wait till the phone call comes and we'll trace the call. And then we'll tell you where the killer is and we'll go out and get him. They're like, okay, fine. So they're all in the room, they're in the living room. They're sitting there, letting ding, 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 ding. Phone picks up. Hello. Oh, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you and your family. He goes, ah, she hangs up. And then the police calls. She's like, oh, okay, they just called. Where are they? The call is coming from inside the house. What? Click, 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 inside the house, right? And like, that's a lot of what? I mean, right? And you're like, ah, in the 60s, like that was just like unheard of. So now, and I think a lot of coaches are preventing their own success from a call vis-a-vis their thoughts that's actually coming from inside the house. And it's always been there.
Yeah, for sure. And I really love that. It's a great analogy. I'm going to steal that and use that because I love it. But I think, it really is about that. It's about, and when we're on the outside and we're coaching our clients, it's sometimes really obvious to see it. You can almost see it happening as people's eyes go up to the left. They're really accessing that part of their brain where the thoughts, you can see them almost looking at their thoughts, and we can see it from the outside, but we are on the inside. It's really hard to see that. So I love this model for helping us to work through that. And then you can flip the model on its head. So then let's look at it from the alternative. So we're working back from R-A-E to T. Forget about the situation because it's neutral. What is the result that we want to get? So let's say you're about to do a discovery call with a client and you're way nervous about it because something went wrong recently, right? So what is the result you really want to get out of this? Write it down. I want this to be an amazing coaching call with my client. They get great potential client. They get great transformation out of it. That's my results. Okay. What are the actions you would need to take to get that result? What are the emotions you would need to be feeling as vibrations in your body to make that action happen? And what thoughts do you need to be thinking right now to feel those emotions? Okay, now go practice those thoughts.
Right. And people, let me interject there for a second, because now we're getting a little bit into energy and law of attraction. And people, they're like, oh, that's Boulder Dash. Well, okay, it's like, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. Well, okay, then I guess you don't use electricity because you can't see that either. And by the way, let me make sure I take out those 3 microwaves that you have. And while I'm in there, I'll take out the Wi-Fi router because you can't see that either. Okay, but you use all 3 of those: electricity, the microwave, and the Wi-Fi router. 90% of the Western world uses that every day. Okay, so like when people try to come at you, not that they're coming at you, but when they try to have this conversation around whatever, it's like, listen, just be open for a second, to the fact that your body energetically is a energetic being, and it's not necessarily everything that you see, hear, or smell. It's
For
actually the
sure.
vibration that you bring.
Absolutely. And I think, there's a reason why